All right, welcome to the deep dive. We're going hyper-local this time. Kansas City landlords, this one's for you.
That's right.
We're digging into the freshest industry data, specifically to see what it means for the KC rental market in 2025.
Exactly.
We're talking key trends, those regulations you've got to know, and some practical tips to help you guys stay ahead of the curve.
We're going to pull out all the good stuff from this 2025 Property Management Industry Report so you don't have to.
Consider this your cheat sheet for navigating the KC rental scene.
Your cheat sheet to being a savvy KC landlord, exactly.
Whether you're seasoned pro or just starting out, we've got you covered.
Yeah.
So let's zoom out to the national picture first. The report says the apartment construction boom, the one we've been seeing lately, is cooling down.
Yeah.
That probably includes Kansas City, right?
Right. Fewer new apartments, though, could be good news for landlords because it means less competition, potentially.
Okay, less competition.
But there's a catch. Rent growth nationally is also predicted to slow down in 2025.
Okay, so less competition, but maybe slower rent growth. What's the big takeaway for KC landlords?
It all boils down to this. Attracting and keeping those good tenants is going to be absolutely critical, even more than before.
That makes total sense. And speaking of tenants, the report says finding good ones is the #1 challenge for landlords across the country. It's their top concern.
Yeah.
So in a market like Kansas City, where that rent growth might be slowing down, you can't really afford vacancies or evictions.
No, you really can't. Turning over a unit costs you time and money.
So rigorous tenant screening has got to be a top priority for KC landlords. But how do you stand out and attract those reliable tenants when everybody's trying to do the same thing?
That's the million-dollar question. This report suggests focusing on what they call the renter experience.
Okay.
Think clear communication, easy online portals for payments and maintenance requests, and maybe even offering different kinds of payment options. Make renting from you a really smooth and positive experience.
So it's almost like you have to become the landlord of choice in
Right.
KC, like offer something special to get those great tenants.
Exactly.
All right, let's shift gears for a minute. Let's talk about another big pain point for landlords: maintenance. The report ranked it as the second biggest challenge nationwide. I bet KC landlords are feeling the pressure too.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, between those crazy high material costs and the struggle to find good contractors, it's a nightmare.
It is. This report really digs into this struggle. It talks about how it's a tough balancing act for landlords because you're dealing with stressed out owners on one side and keeping tenants happy with timely repairs on the other.
So what's the solution? How can KC landlords tackle this maintenance mayhem?
Well, technology can help a lot. Streamline your work orders, use tech to improve communication with those contractors, and even use online platforms to find qualified professionals in the KC area.
I like that, using tech to kind of cut through the chaos. What about actually finding those good, affordable contractors in this market, though?
That's where getting involved in the local KC landlord community can be a lifesaver.
Okay.
Network with other landlords, share recommendations, maybe even team up to negotiate better rates with contractors. It's strength in numbers.
I like that. Sometimes it's about working together to solve these challenges.
Yeah.
Now, something that stood out to me in this report was how they break down rental property owners into 3 different categories.
Yeah, the intentional investors, accidental landlords, and unintentional investors.
Right.
Knowing the difference between these types of owners is going to be huge for anyone working with them in Kansas City.
Yeah, it's like each owner type has these unique needs and motivations. For instance, they mentioned accidental landlords, the ones who may have inherited a property. They could be more sensitive to price when it comes to those management fees.
Right, and they might need a little more hand-holding when it comes to all those regulations and legalities of being a landlord in KC.
And then on the flip side, you've got your intentional investors who are all about maximizing their profits and growing their portfolio.
Exactly. So, if you're working with that type of owner in Kansas City, you'd want to showcase your expertise, your knowledge of market analysis and financial reporting, really prove that you can help them achieve their goals.
Okay, KC, property managers, listen up. This report says ditch that one-size-fits-all approach and tailor your pitch to each owner type. Speak your language, show them you get their needs.
Yeah. Now, before we move on, let's talk about a challenge that's affecting renters across the country: the affordability squeeze.
Okay.
Wages just haven't kept up with those rent increases, and it's a big issue. This report says 50%, a full 50% of renters are what they call cost-burdened, meaning they're spending a huge chunk of their income on rent.
50%, that's a crazy number. How is this impacting the Kansas City market specifically?
Right. Is it driving up tenant turnover in KC? Are renters having to move more often because they can't afford the increases? Are we seeing a shift in the types of properties that are in demand, with renters seeking out more affordable options?
Those are really important questions for KC landlords to consider.
Definitely. We're going to dig into this affordability issue and its potential impact on the Kansas City market in the next part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned. We're just getting started.
Welcome back to our deep dive into this 2025 Property Management Industry Report.
Yeah,
We were just talking about that affordability squeeze hitting renters nationwide.
right.
And something in this report kind of stood out to me as a potential bright spot for landlords.
Oh, tell me more.
It says renters really value good communication from their landlords.
Okay.
Especially in a market like Kansas City, where a lot of people are feeling that financial pinch, going the extra mile to build those relationships could be huge.
I like that idea. That it's almost like shifting from that purely transactional landlord-tenant thing
Right.
to something more, I don't know, community-based, especially in KC, where folks really value that sense of connection.
Exactly. And it could really pay off for landlords. Think lower tenant turnover, fewer vacancies, ultimately a more stable income stream.
Makes sense.
It's a win-win.
Okay, so strong communication is key. But let's face it, being a landlord in 2025 also means embracing technology.
Absolutely. The name of the game is efficiency,
Right.
and technology is the key to that. Think about it. Online payments, maintenance requests, virtual showings, electronic leases. It's a whole new world compared to even a few years ago.
Yeah, and KC landlords need to be on board with those tools.
They do.
Whether they're managing properties themselves or working with a company, it's about staying competitive and meeting those expectations of, today's renters.
Yeah. Today's tech-savvy renters.
Exactly.
Couldn't agree more. And it goes beyond just those basics. Like, the report even highlights how much AI, artificial intelligence, is changing the game in property management.
Interesting.
It's already being used for things like chatbots, writing property descriptions, generating messages. And get this, 20% of property management companies are already using AI in some form.
Wow, 20%. That's more than I would guessed. It sounds like AI is something KC landlords need to be paying attention to. But how can AI actually benefit them in a practical way?
Just imagine like an AI that analyzes rental applications,
Okay.
flags any potential red flags.
Oh, interesting.
Or a chatbot that can answer, those common tenant questions 24/7.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Freeing you up to focus on other things. The possibilities are really exciting.
Yeah, it sounds like a game changer. I also wanted to touch on how this report breaks down the specific ways property managers are using technology to, kind of boost their services.
Yeah, it highlights things like online portals for residents and owners, electronic payment processing, online maintenance coordination.
Okay.
It's all about making things easier, more transparent, more accessible for everyone involved.
That transparency is so important for building trust
It is.
with both owners and renters.
Absolutely.
It's about being proactive and keeping everybody in the loop.
Right.
But in all this tech talk, I don't want us to lose sight of that human element.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Technology is a fantastic tool, but it's those human connections that really make the difference.
Totally.
It's about building relationships, understanding individual needs, creating that sense of community.
Right.
That's what sets a great landlord apart.
It's about finding that balance
Yeah.
between efficiency and empathy, using tech to streamline those operations, but never losing sight of the people at the heart of it all.
I like that. And the report emphasizes how technology can actually help create a more fulfilling work environment for property management teams.
Okay.
But by automating some of those routine tasks, they can free up time to focus on things like business development and building relationships with both owners and tenants.
That makes a lot of sense. Happy, engaged employees are going to provide better service, which translates to happy tenants and owners. It's all connected.
It is.
Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to touch on one more point from the report, and it's about the services that rental owners are really looking for.
Okay, let's unpack that.
The report actually provides a side-by-side comparison of what owners want, what property managers are typically providing, and what services are generating the most revenue.
Right.
What's interesting is there are some gaps, right?
There are, yeah.
For example, rental owners really value thorough tenant background screening.
Uh-huh.
But it doesn't seem to be a huge moneymaker for those property managers.
Yeah, you got it.
And while things like rent collection and those late fees are both, highly desired by owners and profitable for property managers.
Yeah.
Services like legal advice and help with navigating regulations are in high demand, but not widely offered.
It's true.
So there's a real opportunity there for KC property managers to step up and fill that gap,
There is.
especially with all the changing regulations in the rental market.
It's all about understanding the needs of your clients
Yeah.
and finding ways to add value that go beyond just the basics.
Right.
And in a competitive market like Kansas City, that could be a real game changer.
Absolutely. Now, before we jump into the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
let's take a quick pause. I want to hear from you, our KC landlords. What are your big takeaways so far? What's resonating with you? What are you going to try in your business? Hit us up in the comments and let us know. We'll be back in a flash to uncover even more insights from this report, especially how those changing demographics of renters are going to impact the Kansas City market.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been really digging into this 2025 property management industry report,
Yeah,
focusing on what matters most to you, Kansas City landlords.
absolutely.
We've talked national trends, local challenges,
Yeah.
even how technology is changing things up.
Right.
But there's one more piece of the puzzle we need to look at, and that's the changing demographics of renters
Okay.
and what it means for the KC market.
Okay, let's talk demographics. What's the report saying?
Well, the first thing that jumps out is that renter households are getting bigger. The average renter household now has 2.75 occupants, up from 2.5 just a few years ago.
So we're not just talking about, single professionals or young couples anymore.
Right.
It sounds like more families, maybe multi-generational households, are choosing to rent these days.
Exactly. And there are a few reasons for this. That affordability crisis we talked about is definitely a factor.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's pushing some families to rent longer, maybe even for the first time.
Right.
We're also seeing a rise in multi-generational living, adult children moving back in with parents or grandparents living with their families.
Makes sense. So how does this shift towards larger households impact the types of properties that are in demand in Kansas City?
Well, the report specifically calls out single-family rentals as attracting larger households.
Okay.
They average 3.2 occupants compared to 2.5 in those multifamily property.
That makes sense. I mean, single-family homes usually offer more space,
Yeah.
more privacy, which is a big deal for families with kids or those multi-generational households.
Exactly. So, if you're a KC landlord and you're looking to attract those larger, more family-oriented renters,
Right.
single-family homes might be the way to go.
Okay.
But it's not just about the size of the property. Renters today are looking for those specific amenities, too.
Like what kind of amenities? Give me the inside scoop.
Things like in-unit laundry are high on the list,
Okay.
as well as private outdoor space
Makes sense.
and pet-friendly policies, all things that can make a real difference for those families or people living with roommates.
Yeah, those amenities definitely add to the quality of life.
They do.
But it's not just about what's inside the unit, right?
No,
Location still matters, especially for those families.
absolutely. Renters with kids, they're looking for those safe, quiet neighborhoods. They want to be near good schools, parks, playgrounds.
And, let's not forget about proximity to shops, restaurants, all those conveniences that just make life a little easier.
For sure.
Especially in a city like Kansas City where, the neighborhoods
Right.
each have such a distinct personality.
Exactly. So KC landlords, take note. Location is key. Think about the overall lifestyle you're offering. Highlight those nearby amenities that appeal to families. Make their lives a little bit easier.
It's about painting that picture, right?
It is.
So we've covered those national trends, local challenges, the tech stuff,
Right.
and now these changing demographics of renters.
Yep.
What's the big takeaway for Kansas City landlords?
Yeah.
What do they need to do to really succeed in this market that seems to be constantly evolving?
I think the biggest takeaway is just that the rental market is becoming more, dynamic, more nuanced.
Okay.
Renters have higher expectations.
Exactly.
They're facing these financial pressures,
Yeah.
and their needs are evolving too.
Right.
Landlords who stay informed, who adapt to these changes, and really prioritize that renter experience,
Okay.
those are the ones who are going to succeed in the long run.
It's about being proactive, not reactive, right?
Absolutely.
Understanding the market and anticipating the needs of your target renters.
I like that.
And this report gives those KC landlords the tools and insights they need to do just that.
It does. It's like a roadmap to navigate this exciting, ever-changing world of the Kansas City rental market.
I like that.
Mm.
And remember, we'll keep bringing you the latest information and strategies to help you stay ahead of the curve.
We will.
So, to all our KC landlords out there, thanks for diving deep with us. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep building those amazing rental communities.
Yeah, keep crushing it.
Until next time, happy renting.